Crimson Trace now offers a line of tactical-oriented products, including open and closed reflex sights, battle sights, and a robust line of rifle scopes, purpose-built with maximum features and versatility. Find out more at crimsontrace.com.
Today on Tom Gresham's Gun Talk, live from the 34th Annual Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix, Tom's talking with reps from the Second Amendment Foundation, the Firearms Coalition, the Polite Society Podcast, Black Man with a Gun, Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, Knife Rights, the Independence Institute, and more. And as always, call us at 866-TALK-GUN with your comments, questions, and range reports. And now, here's Tom.
We are having a ball. I am in Phoenix, Arizona at the Gun Rights Policy Conference where a whole bunch of gun rights activists have gathered. It is really something. If you've heard me talk about it in the past, it's an amazing place. It's an incredible event. It's where you go to get your batteries recharged. And we're seeing something here that is really encouraging. Joining me right now is the head of the Second Amendment Foundation Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. Alan Gottlieb joins us. Alan, it is amazing how many people you've gotten it this year.
Yeah, it's our all-time record attendance. It's just blown through the roof, and I think maybe we have to thank Beto O'Rourke for his gun confiscation.
You're right.
For his gun confiscation calls that have helped us build our attendance and get gun owners engaged and activated. This is just fantastic.
Okay, so last year we had, 850 or so pre-registered for the event?
Yes.
What'd you have this year?
1160, I think it was.
So you're up 35%.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And this, usually our up years are in election years. This is the off year. It's not an election year.
Right.
But gun owners realize how important the next election cycle is, and they're here now, and they're already getting involved.
And the underlying thing that we all understand is that a lot of people are also looking at it, and there's the bad news and the good news of it. They're looking at it and go, well, the NRA is frankly crippled, and understanding, what? We probably all each individually need to step up. Let's get involved and not just depend upon somebody else. And that's kind of one of the things, the mood I see here is people saying, all right, we're going to take this on. We're going to move forward. And let's just get it done.
Yeah, you're definitely right. But I think I'm going to go a step further than that. It wasn't like, let's take this on and get it done. This year's speakers, when they were talking about what's going on, here's what we're doing.
Right.
It's already being done.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're exactly right. Because there are so many programs in place that people are doing. All over the country, we have state groups, we have national groups, we have women's groups, and I brought a friend here. It's his first time here. And he's a gun rights activist. And he was commenting yesterday to me. He says, the level of diversity here is startling and encouraging. And, it doesn't matter if you're talking about people of color, if you're talking about women, doesn't matter, whatever, LGBTQ groups. Everybody's here. Everybody's represented under this big tent of gun rights.
Yeah, and it's even expanded. We've a new Hispanic gun rights group that's here.
Right.
We've really, it's great when you look at the audience. It's not the audience it used to be.
The other thing, and I'm just going to say this, and it's going to sound like, oh wow, look who just woke up, right? But when you look out there and you look at the agenda and the speakers, it's not just that. A few years ago we had women attending. Now we have women leading. And that's a different deal. I mean, there are some women who are actually taking strong leadership positions in the gun rights movement, which is a wonderful thing because, frankly, they can speak to an audience that is a little bit more receptive to them.
Yeah, there's no doubt that's true. But the audience as a whole, the percentage of women in the audience is phenomenal.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's really something. So, all right, for those who don't know, this is a day and a half or 2 days of absolute fire hose information. I mean, it's like when you change from one panel to another, it's 2 minutes, move them out, move them in, and here we go. And it doesn't matter if you're talking about from the leading Second Amendment attorneys on the fights in the courts to, what's going on in Congress. You're getting all of it here.
You get all of it here. And it's interesting. Each year, the gun rights movement has grown. And because it's grown so big, this year we had 91 speakers in a day and a half.
I don't know how you get them in.
You know, and it's amazing. And they're all doing things. What's going on proactive in the gun rights movement now, which doesn't make, you know, the legacy media out there doesn't report it.
Good point.
What's going on proactive, winning battles across the country. You know, it makes you feel, you know, when you read the newspapers, it makes you feel like you're on defense and everybody's attacking you. And,
right.
You know, you're being demonized and ostracized. When you get here, you see what everybody's doing proactively. And we are making a lot of gains and gaining a lot of ground all over the country.
You're right. Not just legislatively, but with the litigation, with the court cases. We have a lot of wins, but it's really hard to find those in the general media. I mean, I think about what just happened this week, you know, the announcement that Colt says they're not going to make AR-15s for the civilian market. Well, that's because they're not selling any. I mean, that was all it was. But the media twisted that and made it sound as though, oh, because of shootings or whatever, Colt's getting out of it. Just another case of, if you didn't know the background, you would think, oh, wow, this is another defeat, this is another loss. No. It's just a gun company that says, we're not selling many of these, we're not going to make them anymore.
There's so many companies making them now.
Well, that's what happened. You know, they're not making them because there are 100 others that are making AR-15s now.
I mean, AR-15 sales are like record levels.
Yes.
So it's just Colt. Colt can't compete with all the other brands that are out there right now.
But to your point, the media kind of makes it sound like it's a defeat when it really had nothing to do with that. One of the things I get from this is people come away at GRPC. I always say they recharge their batteries, but I think you're right. It's kind of like, oh, we're actually winning. We're actually doing a lot of good things, which invigorates you to go out and do more.
Yeah, it really does. And I was amazed. You know, we always have good speakers, and they always have good things to talk about. But what it got me this year was not just good things they're talking about. It's like, you know, they're on the front line, cutting edge of doing all kinds of things. And it's really it's mushroomed. I mean, it's really impressive.
Right. I mean, we're going to be talking with a lot of different guests today about what's going on the litigation side and the courtrooms. We've got, you know, a major case sitting there at the Supreme Court. We got like a half a dozen of them waiting on deck that might be able to get there. There's things going on there. We'll talk about that strategy. We're actually going to talk about the idea of somehow incorporating gun rights into the gaming community. Now, that was a new one that we went, oh, that's kind of interesting. So we're going to go there a little bit later on the show today. And then, of course, one of the things that's happened, and you've been here watching it, is the growth of electronic media in gun rights, podcasts, blogs, YouTube channels, all of that. And they're everywhere here.
Yeah, tacked on to GRPC is an AmCon event, which brings all the bloggers, talk show hosts, you know, new media people for the gun rights movement. And we had 100 people
right
attend that separate event.
They had to cut it off.
And they had to cut it off at the 100.
They have 100 people, but they wanted more. People wanted to come in. But these are people who wanted to come in and learn, how do I do better video? How do I do better podcasts? You know, how does this work? What's this piece of equipment? Yeah. You know, what do we need to be doing? And it was wonderful. I actually got to speak there. It was great.
I know, and just the cool thing is, like, you know, this whole conference, which is still actually going on, is being live streamed on the Second Amendment Foundation's Facebook page. We now have over 100,000 people that have tuned into it over the course of the 2 days.
Right.
So, I mean, GRPC now, we're reaching a football stadium.
It's amazing. Now, next year, we're going to Orlando, right?
We're going to be in Orlando next year.
And that's an election year.
That's an election year, and Florida is a battleground state.
Yes, it is. It's going to be huge. For people who want to keep up on what's going on, the website for Second Amendment Foundation is saf.org, and they'll have all the information about the next GRPC 2020 right there.
Right, but if you miss this one, if you go to the SAF Facebook, if you go to, not SAF.org, but if you go to the SAF, Facebook/SAF Second Amendment Foundation, or search Second Amendment Foundation on Facebook, all the video is going to be archived.
Oh, that's right. So it's as though you can come to Phoenix after the fact and watch all of the panels.
Yes, and so so the 100,000 already watched it live. That's going to mushroom through the year to be, I don't know what, maybe 500,000.
Yeah, and let me just tell you, if you want a graduate school in gun rights activism, if you sit here and watch all of these panels that were presented here, you'll come away going, holy cow, I've learned so much. Alan, GRPC, 34th year?
34th year.
Amazing. Your vision is incredible, my friend. You put this thing together. You've done so much. It's a wonderful, wonderful event. I would encourage anybody, if you think at all you'd be interested in it, Start making your plans now to attend next year.
Thank you for your kind words, Tom.
Thank you, Alan. Alan Gottlieb from the Second Amendment Foundation. All right, 866-TALK-GUN. We are taking calls. If you'd like to join us right now, we'll talk about, well, guns, range reports, anything you want to talk about. I'm Tom Gresham. Be right back with more Gun Talk.
For more than 70 years, Timney Triggers has been enhancing the shooter's experience. Whether it's a local competition, a day at the range, or even the hunt of a lifetime. Setting the standard in aftermarket triggers, Timney is now producing more than 170 models of triggers for bolt-action rifles, shotguns, AR rifles, and semi-automatic rifles. Proudly made in the USA since 1946. Find your new trigger at timneytriggers.com.
Hi, this is Tom Gresham from Gun Talk. America is losing critical wildlife habitat at a rate of 1 football field every hour. It's happening on the Louisiana coast, but it's critical to all sportsmen and conservationists. These precious wetlands provide winter habitat for more than 10 million ducks and geese annually, waterfowl that migrate north through dozens of states. Don't shrug it off. Get involved. You can help. Visit vanishingparadise.org.
This is Ryan Gresham with Gun Talk. Visit guntalk.com/win to enter our latest giveaway for a chance to win a Kimber in September. Our grand prize winner receives the Kimber Evo SP Custom Shop 9mm handgun, a collaborative design between engineers and gunsmiths, with stainless steel slide, G10 grips, True Glow Tritium Pro sights, and 2 7-round magazines. Enter now through September 27th at guntalk.com/win.
It's back. The Smith & Wesson 10mm revolver. Yes, the Model 610 is back in 4 and 6.5-inch barrels. 6-shot moon clips full of powerful 10mm rounds. Plus, you can shoot 40 S&W ammo in it too. Stainless steel, black synthetic finger groove grips, interchangeable front sight with an adjustable rear sight. Take it to 10 with the Model 610 revolver. Visit smith-wesson.com.
Back with the 866 Talk Gun. Get you in here. Got an email from Heather. She says, I'm a 61-year-old woman on the smaller side. I love my Ruger 1022 and Ruger SR22. The problem is I'm going for training and they require a larger caliber. What handgun would you recommend? She says, have small hands and some arthritis in my thumb joint. Thanks, Heather. Heather, a lot of people in that same situation. And it's really the reason that, and I know people say, well, get a 9mm. The .380 caliber is a great caliber for training, for self-defense, and now you have a slide on your semi-auto that doesn't have a real strong spring. It's a lot easier to operate, and there are several different ones. Smith & Wesson has the M&P 380 EZ. They actually call it the EZ because it's easy. Other manufacturers have them. And I would say don't get a small pistol like the Ruger LCP. It's a great pistol, but the smaller it is, the stronger the spring. It's a little harder to work. A mid-size pistol, semi-automatic pistol in the .380 ACP caliber would be what I'd recommend. I think you will like that. Everybody we have put these mid-size .380s into their hands just shoots really well, and they just love how they handle. We're joined right now by Dave Kopel from the Independence Institute. Dave, I mean, you're over here, as I'm talking, you're nodding on the .380, right? You're going, yeah, that'll work, right?
It's a fine caliber.
It really is, and it just doesn't get the respect it ought to get. When we shoot it into gelatin and I'm doing ballistic tests, it's like within an inch in penetration of the 9mm.
Well, and then the purpose of the self-defense gun is the gun that you can use and be comfortable with and practice with a lot.
There is that, yeah, because if you don't like it, if you won't shoot it, and certainly if you won't take it with you, it doesn't do you any good at all. You know, the gun that you don't have is pretty darn worthless.
That's right.
All right, so tell me about the Independence Institute and kind of what you... For those who don't know, I just got to say, you've been involved in the Second Amendment fight a long time, particularly on the scholarship side and the litigation side. So what is Independence Institute and what do you guys do?
So the Independence Institute is the second oldest state-level think tank in the United States. And we were founded in 1985 on the eternal principles of the eternal truths of the Declaration of Independence.
Okay.
I started writing for them in '88 and became full-time with them in '92 as the research director.
Okay. So what do you guys do?
Well, the think tank is, excuse me, our think tank as a whole works on lots of issues. Education has always been our top one, trying to improve options and choices so families can pick the best schools that are right for them. Transportation policy, fair tax policy.
Would you say it's a libertarian bent?
Yes, not in the. It is free market-ish and libertarian-ish, not in the sort of hardcore dogmatic libertarian sense where you say, well, we shouldn't have public. We shouldn't have parking meters on the streets.
Yeah, there's no role for government. Yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's the principles of the Declaration of Independence. They weren't against government existing at all, but they understood that as the Declaration says, our God-given fundamental human rights come first, and we create governments for the purpose of protecting those rights.
Right. Okay. So you were on, I think, maybe more than one panel this time.
Just one, the legal panel yesterday afternoon.
As I'm looking up there and looking at all these attorneys, and all these folks are involved in this, it's just an enormous set of brain power. The teams that are working on this all over the country are some of the sharpest people I've ever run into. Would you agree? We got good people working on litigation everywhere now.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And there's also plenty of great lawyers who weren't here this year but have been here on different years in the past.
Right. Okay. So if you were to explain kind of where we are with the litigation side of things, kind of bring people up to speed with what has happened and kind of where we are now.
Clearly, the Supreme Court decisions in Heller in 2008 and then McDonald versus Chicago making the Second Amendment enforceable against state and local governments were huge. And, of course, those were 5-4 decisions. And if the 2016 presidential election had gone the other way, we would likely be looking at cases that would either overrule them entirely or narrow them down so much that they hardly had any effect. So the judiciary is continuing to improve with more of a pro-rights perspective.
A lot of new judges. I think they said, Trump has put 150 judges on the bench.
Yes.
And then obviously Gorsuch, Kavanaugh. We'll see what happens with the Supreme Court. But a lot of the lower courts over the last 10 years have been not ignoring, maybe ignoring Heller and McDonald decisions. They're not giving them the deference, I would think.
I think that's true. As Justice Alito, in his opinion for the court in McDonald versus Chicago, said the Second Amendment is not a second-class right to be subjected to an entirely different, lower standard of protection than other enumerated rights in the Bill of Rights. And there are certainly plenty of judges who have taken that to heart and ruled fairly on Second Amendment cases. And that doesn't mean that the pro-Second Amendment side always wins, but the issues get fair consideration.
Right.
But there are certainly also plenty of other judges around the country who are fundamentally hostile to the existence of the Second Amendment. We're apparently very disappointed with how Heller and McDonald came out.
Right.
And they have...
They really make no bones about it, do they? It's almost as if they say, well, yeah, they decided that, but that's actually not correct or that's not right or whatever.
Well, yes, you do have some opinions that explain why they think Heller was incorrect, but then they go on to purport to apply it, but they really don't. They've invented tests and subtests to, in effect, say that the government always wins. So here's one example. Okay. This is a technical thing. Some constitutional issues are reviewed under a standard called intermediate scrutiny.
Right.
That's something where the government has the burden of proof to justify the law, but it's a lesser burden than the justification you have under strict scrutiny, and it's a higher standard than what's called the rational basis test, which is in effect that the government almost always wins no matter what.
Basically, you have three different levels then.
Right. Okay. So under intermediate scrutiny, the government's got the burden of proof. And as the Supreme Court has explained, the way you're supposed to go at it
Go ahead and grab that drink there. I know it's dry out here in the desert, so...
Indeed. Even less humidity than in Colorado.
Yeah, no kidding. So, yeah, all right, so you got intermediate, strict scrutiny, rational basis, and in my view, that the Second Amendment should be a strict scrutiny, level of consideration, or at least of, if you will, that's the standard that should be applied. So what happens there?
Well, so on the First Amendment, you would get strict scrutiny when the government regulates based on the content of speech.
Okay.
When the government regulates on the viewpoint of speech, that's just per se unconstitutional. But if it's viewpoint neutral but discriminates against a certain type of content, then the government has to justify that under strict scrutiny. But then at a lower level, when the government is just regulating, say, the time, place, and manner of speech, that's judged under intermediate scrutiny. So rules about, the use of an amplification sound system in a public park.
Okay.
You can't have you can have a parade here, but not there. So intermediate scrutiny's got a reasonable role. The problem is, a lot of courts say that anything other than a handgun ban in the home
is allowed.
Will pretend to review it under intermediate scrutiny, when really a ban on a type of arm should be strict scrutiny.
Right.
And then they'll go further. In normal intermediate scrutiny, the government has to come forward with its evidence and provide some justification for the law. Then the other side, whoever disagrees with the law, puts on their evidence, which might call into question or challenge the government's evidence. And then the government can come back and respond to what the other side said. But as things have been done in the Second Circuit and the Fourth Circuit and the Ninth Circuit, they only go to step one. They say, did the government put on some reasonable evidence? And if they did, that's the end of the case.
Good enough.
And you don't consider how the challengers criticized or questioned or undermined the government's evidence.
Okay. Hold that thought, because we come back. I know we have one case sitting there at the Supreme Court, and it looks like they're going to, we've got oral arguments scheduled now,
yes,
right?
Yes.
All right. So I want to talk about that and kind of some of the other cases that are in line and what it could mean, because we could be looking at some significant changes coming up here.
Absolutely.
All right. We're talking with Dave Kopel. All right. If you'd like to join us, 866-TALK-GUN will get you in here. We're at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Tom Gresham. This is Gun Talk.
Good morning, Mr. Gresham. Your mission, should you decide to accept it, is to host a radio show that will bring truth and common sense to the discussion of firearms rights in this country. Good luck, Tom, to you and your Tom Gresham's Gun Talk team.
Hey, welcome back. We're at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix, Arizona, having a good time here. Tons of information. If you're into this at all, if you like the idea of working for gun rights, getting involved in your state group, just becoming better informed, I would encourage you two things. One is you can go to the Second Amendment Foundation's Facebook page and look at all the videos from all these panels that are going on here this year. And, of course, you can make plans to go to the GRPC next year in Orlando, which will be 2020, which will be an election year, which will be huge, big deal. We're talking right now with Dave Kopel from the Independence Institute. Dave is, of course, lawyer, scholar. You've been, in this game, if you will, for an awful long time. We have a case sitting at the Supreme Court. What is that, and how important is this?
It's the case of New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus New York City. Mm-hmm. And it is a challenge to a regulation that New York City had enacted saying if you were a licensed handgun owner living in the city, you can never take your handgun outside the city, except you could go hunting. But you could go handgun hunting in New York State.
You couldn't go to a range outside of the city.
Right.
It was weird.
And there's only 7 public ranges in any sense in New York City, with a city of 8.1 million people.
Right.
And some of those they're open to the public in the sense that you can buy a membership and things, but they're not someplace you can just go up and pay a daily fee and shoot. And whereas, of course, in New York and Connecticut and upstate New York,
a lot of places to go.
Connecticut, and if you live in Staten Island, just drive over the bridge and shoot it at a good quality range in New Jersey. But that was all forbidden.
Okay.
To New York City residents. And likewise, if you've had a second home in Pennsylvania or upstate New York, you couldn't take your handgun out of the city there. So the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers New York, Connecticut, and Vermont, upheld that New York City ban and said this probably isn't even a Second Amendment issue.
Wow.
This doesn't.
Wow.
And they said just in case it is, we'll review it under intermediate scrutiny. They called it, but it was really a much lower standard. The only evidence the New York City put forward in favor of this ban was a affidavit from a former police official who said, people transporting their unloaded guns, locked in a trunk, are just as susceptible to road rage as anybody else. And it kind of went on in that vein, but they didn't supply a single instance ever of a licensed New York City handgun owner transporting his unloaded, locked up gun, perpetrating road rage or any other crime.
Well, the part about this I like is that as this case moved forward, and it looked like the Supreme Court might actually accept the case, and New York might actually lose it, and then set a precedent, New York says, oh, wait, time out. We're going to actually change the law. We'll get rid of the law so there won't be a case, right?
Exactly. Once the Supreme Court granted certiorari, the city came forward, worked out a deal to extend the briefing schedule. And the other side accepted that because that's part of sort of the normal courtesy of law. But in this case, the courtesy was abused because New York City used that interim to change the administrative regulation and then even to get the state legislature to pass a law preempting in part the abusive regulation that New York City had enacted. And so now New York City says, this case is moot. There's no longer a case for controversy. The response to that is usually voluntary desistance doesn't moot a case. So if you're suing me because I keep coming over to your house and lighting your yard on fire every night, and then you finally get a case in court and we're about to go to trial, and I say, look, I'll stop lighting.
I won't do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm not going to light Gresham's bushes on fire anymore. So I voluntarily desisted. There's no case. And courts will typically say, no, your voluntary desistance from your misconduct is obviously a strategic thing just to avoid a judicial ruling.
So what did the Supreme Court do?
The Supreme Court has not formally ruled on New York City's mootness argument.
Okay.
But the fact that they've gone ahead and scheduled the case for oral argument on the merits on December 2nd, I think is an indication they don't think the mootness argument is that strong.
Right. No, it's huge. So they're going to have oral arguments on the 2nd, unless something happens between now and then.
Right.
At that point, we're talking about the cases in front of the Supreme Court.
Yeah. The case has been fully briefed. I wrote an amicus brief for the Independence Institute and a bunch of law professors that was filed back in May, explaining in more detail some of the things we talked about in the last segment.
Could we end up with a Supreme Court ruling that says the Second Amendment should be viewed with strict scrutiny? Is that a possibility coming out of this?
Yes, and although it's unlikely they would say everything about the Second Amendment has to be viewed with strict scrutiny for the same reason that not everything in the First Amendment is viewed with strict scrutiny.
Yeah, you made that point earlier.
Or they could say what then Judge Kavanaugh, when he was on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, said, which is, really, if you read Heller, it doesn't seem to be doing this tiers of scrutiny approach that does exist in some other areas of law. It seems like the court is indicating we should judge controversies based on text, history, and tradition. So it's possible that they could do that. It's also possible they could do something fairly short, like they did in the Kitano case, where they, without even needing oral argument, they simply reversed a decision of the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, which had upheld a ban on stun guns. And the U.S. Supreme Court did that unanimously.
Wow.
In what's called a per curiam opinion. It was a fairly short opinion.
So are you going to be there on the 2nd?
No, I've got other work to do, and they're traveling to watch other people talk is just not efficient for me.
Not your thing. All right, tell people how they can find out more about what you're doing, if you would.
Go to my website. It's davekopel.org.
It's Kopel.
Yes, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Dave Kopel, DaveKopel.
Fabulous. Dave, thank you. You always make things understandable, which is really great for me. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. You're a great show, and you deserve that Lifetime Achievement Award you won yesterday.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, don't go far. 866-TALK-GUN will get you in here. I'm Tom Gresham. We'll be right back.
FN, the world's most battle-proven firearms. You want to reach for history, for greatness. So reach for the FN-57, a 5.7 millimeter pistol built with the DNA of over a century of legendary FN firearms. And now, it's within reach at your local firearms dealer. The FN-57 is the perfect combination of accuracy and stopping power. FN, the world's most battle-proven firearms.
Perhaps more than any other landscape, wetlands embody the life-giving abundance that nature has to offer. And perhaps more than any other organization, Ducks Unlimited is working to ensure that our continent's wetlands not only survive, but thrive for generations well beyond this one. The time is now to band together. The time is now to rescue our wetlands.
It's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs. I'm Alan Gottlieb, founder of the Second Amendment Foundation. When someone says we don't need that kind of gun, remind them the Founding Fathers determined what rights our Constitution should protect. There's a world of difference between rights and needs. It is not the function of government to tell us what we need or what we don't. Certainly no one needs an assault rifle or a Saturday Night Special, or for that matter, no one needs a Corvette with a high-capacity horsepower engine capable of speeds to 150 miles per hour. But in the hands of honest, responsible individuals, we have the right of choice. We have the right to read books others don't like. We have the right to listen to any radio program we choose. We have the right to dress the way we want to. We also have the right to own firearms of our choice. So the next time someone tells you, you don't need something, tell them it's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs. Join the Second Amendment Foundation today so that this message and our Bill of Rights might live. Call 425-454-7012. That's 425-454-7012.
You got your carry permit, and that's good. But you know you could use more training. Get the DVDs, which have what you need. Springfield Armory presents Concealed Carry 1 and Concealed Carry 2 with Batagroup. Learn specific concealed carry skills from Top Gun fighting trainers. Get trained. Be prepared. This really is life and death. ShopGunTalk.com. That's ShopGunTalk.com.
All right, back with you, Tom Gresham at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. A lot of leaders of various gun rights groups are here. Different perspectives, bringing different messages, and all of it put together is amazing. And Rob Pincus joins us right now, Executive Director, Executive Vice President of Gun Rights Group.
Second Amendment Organization.
Okay.
Which
right.
I took that helm last year at Gun Rights Policy Conference, so I'm celebrating an anniversary of that position, and Gun Rights Policy Conference is the best place to do it.
It's just unbelievable. I mean, amazing. Talk about the incredible amalgamation, because you look around, it used to be, I mean, honestly, it used to be all white guys.
Right.
It's definitely not that anymore.
No, not even close. I just actually left the room during the Let's Grow the Footprint and Grow into Different Demographics panel that's going on right now with Kevin Dixie, Rhonda Ezell, Piper Smith, Aaron Paulette. It's just, they weren't here 10 years ago.
No,
they weren't here 5 years ago.
I mean, you got Kim Blanchard, you got Maj Touré, you got Ronnie Zell, you got women everywhere.
Oh, I'm telling you, you spoke. I heard you speak the other day at the Alternative Mass Media convention, and that room was probably 40% women.
Yes.
And it's the largest concentration of women I've seen at a gun industry related event that wasn't specifically a women's luncheon or something like that. And this organization, obviously Second Amendment Foundation, Citizen for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, they've done an amazing job for many decades. And what they've done with Gun Rights Policy Conference is a great asset to the entire community.
What's that do for the gun rights movement to be represented and more diversified?
Well, I think what it does is it reminds everybody that we're 100 million Americans, that we're not just one demographic, we're not just one organization, we are not just one piece of rhetoric. We're not just one talking point. We are an incredibly diverse, huge portion of the American population.
We're 100 million people.
Yeah.
And so that is going to take in pretty much every demographic, every group that you can imagine out there, and they're being represented here. And people who honestly might not have a lot in common otherwise in
Absolutely.
some cases.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we need to celebrate that. And it's one of the things that we've been really passionate about over the last several months is reminding everybody that, with the crisis that's facing the NRA, we've talked about it. You've talked about it a lot. You've addressed it.
Right.
I've certainly been very active there. The organization saved.
You just got back from the board meeting.
Yeah. Well,
frustrating.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. And I'll tell you what we need is we need more of those 100 million Americans, and especially the 5 million card-carrying NRA members to get a little bit more involved, to be a louder voice, to see what's going on, to ask the right questions.
Well, and the first thing is to find out what's going on, because I am still convinced that 70 to 80% of the NRA members have no idea what's going on, of the controversies and the stories that are. And I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. There's going to be words out of my mouth. It's a mess. It's an unbelievable mess. And there's my word, not yours. I think there's so much corruption at the top that is unthinkable what has happened, to the tunes of not just tens, but hundreds of millions of dollars have been pulled out of the NRA and put into private hands. Okay, so I did not ask you to say that. All right, you're looking over here like, dang, Tom, I don't believe you went there.
I'm glad you did. I've used you as the example. It's easy to attack 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 people, but Tom Gresham's not working for Bloomberg. He's not sponsoring a show, is he?
No, I don't think so.
Because that's what we're told, right? And it's easy to believe that when you hear from.
Oh, you said the NRA is actually saying if you criticize them, you're working for Bloomberg.
You're not like doing Bloomberg's work, but they are literally Bloomberg-backed haters. Is one of the things I've heard a board of director that sits in one of the chairs of executive leadership of the NRA board said explicitly many times. He's put it in social media. The idea that it's easy to say, and a lot of NRA members want to believe that this is all an attack from the left. It's an attack from the anti-gunners. It's an attack from Bloomberg. And I get it, because are they taking advantage of it? Yes. But this mess was created in Fairfax.
Are you trying to do away with the NRA?
Absolutely not.
I didn't think so.
No.
We need the NRA.
We need a strong NRA that we can be proud of. We need one that represents 100 million Americans, doesn't just represent a small demographic, a small slice.
It's an interesting point. If we have 100 million gun owners, why do we have only 5 million NRA members?
I've asked it for years. I've said, we have 5 to 6% at the best reported number that are NRA members. Why? I don't blame the 100 million American gun owners. I don't think that we should be supporting the current version of the NRA. And I've said that for a long time, and it's been controversial. But, when we have voices like yours, voices that are joining the call for reform, the call for restructuring, the call for a change at the top.
To be clear, I'm saying support the NRA because we need a strong NRA. The problem is, how do you exert pressure on the leadership, on the board? And I will tell you, and we haven't talked about this ahead of time. I have grown very skeptical of the ability or willingness of the current board of directors to do anything.
I can tell you from being at the board meeting last week, I'm 100% in line with that. And unfortunately, right now is the time to put pressure on the board of directors. And when I went to the board of directors, I was 0.0000002% of the NRA membership were at the board meetings last Thursday in Virginia. That was 1 out of 5 million.
You were it.
So day 2, we had 3.
Yeah.
By the Saturday,
first day, you were the only one.
First day, I was the only one. And what we need in January 11th in Tyson's Corner, Virginia, is the winter board meeting for the NRA. Members are allowed to attend by the bylaws. They did not make it easy. It was quite frankly an attempt to be intimidating. I think the members
they had large security guys kind of moving you all over the place.
And I don't. They know me, right? I'm not going to be intimidated by that. But I think they kept a couple of people away. And what I'm saying is we need hundreds of NRA members that care what's going on. Even if we only get in that meeting for 30 seconds and they go to executive session, we need to be there.
That's what happened to me in Indianapolis. I went in. We were there for like 2 minutes. They went into executive session for 9 hours.
Yeah.
Basically kicked all the members out.
Yep.
So hold that thought here. We're going to take a quick break here. We're talking with Rob Pincus. By the way, how do people find out what you're doing? How do they keep in touch?
We want to talk about the NRA. SaveThe2A.org. SaveThe2A.org. Save the Second is the organization that's pushing for reform. We've got some ideas how people can get involved at the website.
Okay, all right. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we actually might even talk about shooting guns and training.
That'd be fun.
It's an even more fun thing to do. All right, we're at the Gun Rights Policy Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. But you know what? You can join us right here on the air. Call me, 866-TALK-GUN or Tom Talk Gun. Let's go straight to the phones. Justin's with us in Arnold, Missouri. Justin, what's on your mind, sir?
Hey, Tom. I want to call and get your opinion between the FN 509 midsize and the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 compact.
Okay, rather than me answer it, I'm going to let Rob Pincus, who is a top trainer, dive in.
I'll tell you what, they're both great platforms for a lot of people. The reason I'm going to say that all things being equal, the Smith & Wesson M&P is a longer proven platform. And to me, that's one of the most important things that I can tell people. I tell people, look, if all things being equal, Glocks, 3 decades, M&P,
2 decades.
Almost 15 years now, I guess, almost 2 decades. Yeah. And then the XD series, which is, again, a couple decades. I've seen so many students work with all 3 of those platforms, and it just depends on your hand size, your personal preference, the aesthetic. But the FN, I really like it, and it's coming on strong. It feels great. It shoots great. It just hasn't been around. You're not going to have as many accessories. You're not going to have as many holster options. It's got some more time. I want to see it in more students' hands before I add it to the list.
Have you had a chance to shoot either one of them, Justin?
Well, first of all, I don't know if Rob Pincus really knows what he's talking about. However,
you and half the internet.
Yeah. Oh no. You're good. No, I have actually had a chance to shoot bull, and anywhere from 7 to 20 yards, I'm pretty well equal between the two. An Apex duty carry trigger kit in the Smith & Wesson will bring me right up to par with how I shoot the FN. I shoot one ragged hole at all distances with both guns, except on the M&P, I'm like right on the line between the 8 and 9 ring, and the FN, I'm both.
Hey, Justin, if you know the deal now. If you're shooting one ragged hole, you're shooting too slow, right?
There you go. I think you ought to buy both. Start shooting faster, and then if it works with your carry ammo, you're going to be all set. But like
you can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong with either one of those. You're in the right zone for sure. It sounds like you're shooting in the right zone, and they're both great brands. I'm excited about the FN 509 bringing FN back into the current carry conversation, because for a long time they weren't present there. They really weren't an option.
It's a really nice shooting pistol.
It really is.
Like you say, it's just newer.
Yep.
So, but at this point, you have no bad choices. So it's personal preference.
There you go.
Way to go, Justin. I think shoot faster, man. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you're shooting little bitty ragged holes,
and that's I assume we're talking about a defensive carry gun. So I look for those the same yardage you're shooting at, but a hand-sized group, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, fill that high center chest up.
Yeah, and then just learn to shoot faster, bring the group down, shoot faster, bring the group down, just work on it. It's my wife was taking a class with Kay Mitchell, and my wife is shooting these tight little groups, with her little sweet. And Kay comes by and pats her on the back, says, "That's really nice. Shoot faster."
Okay. I like it. Do better.
Exactly. You could do better. All right. So if people want to keep up with what you're up to, I know both the training and the NRA stuff.
Yeah, really social media. If they follow me on Instagram at Pincus Rob, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook, Pincus Rob Pro. There is a plethora of information. I wear a lot of different hats. They're going to find the latest and greatest, and the links to then all the websites with Walk the Talk America, with 2AO, with Personal Defense Network.
Give me 30 seconds on Walk the Talk America.
Mental health awareness. It's something we need to be talking more about. Not just suicide prevention, not just the superficial thing. It needs to be okay for American gun owners to seek mental health assistance. And quite honestly, it's something we have a problem with across the country, but especially in our community. We know that suicide is the largest chunk of that firearms-related deaths that the other side uses against us. Let's make a dent.
Walk the Talk America. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on social media. Just put that in. Get involved. Learn how to talk to other people and learn how to tell people it's okay to talk.
Absolutely. WTTA.org.
There you go. Rob Pincus, thank you so much. Always a pleasure, my friend. All right, when we come back, we're going to be talking about what's going on with other areas of the Second Amendment. We're at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, GRPC. I always have to get the letters right on that. Check it out, the Second Amendment Foundation's website. They have the video running right now, what's going on there. And we're going to have a whole lot more here. If you'd like to join us, 866-TALK-GUN will get you in there. I'm Tom Gresham. We are live from Phoenix, Arizona at GRPC 2019.